Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. It's a great honor for me to be here with you and be part of the social forum this year. There is no voice. I'm trying my best. And as you see, there is technical problem, but I said to my friends that I'm here because there is a reason I'm here. As an ex-political prisoner, during the 5 years that I was in the jail, I was witness of massacre, I was witness of execution, and I lost many friends during the time. So, from the time I got freedom, I promised myself to be voice of them, and always I'm standing for them as long as I'm alive. Today, Brian, my very dear friend, is with me, and he's playing for me as always. I think we have some common social belief. And
it's an honor for me to be here and certainly to accompany Shirin, but I think it's also very important that art is an essential factor of all change. And the truth of the matter is, when the repressive regimes try to control the people, they always start with the artists. So when we can't sing anymore, then we can't fight. So it's a great honor for me to be here with Shirin, and I hope, I know.
So I prefer not singing in mic because, anyway. I choose the poem from Ahmad Shamlu, Common Love. And yeah, I'm going to sing for you. Tear is a secret, laughter is a secret, love is a secret. The tear of that night was laughter of my love. I'm not a story you can tell, not a melody you can sing, not a voice you can hear or something you can see or you can know. I'm a common pain, scream me, I'm a common pain. Tree has a word with forest, grass with plain, and I with you. Tell me your name, give your hands to me, tell me your story and give me your heart. I have understood your roots. With your lips I have spoken for all the lips. Your hands are familiar with my hands. For the sake of those who are alive, I wept with you in solitude. I have sung the most beautiful songs in the darkness of cemeteries, because this year's death very love more than anyone alive. I'm talking to you, whom I found very late. Your hands are familiar with me, like a cloud with fields, like a rain with ocean, like a bird with springs, and like a tree that talks with the forest. Because I have understood your roots, because my voice knows your voice. I'm a common pain, screaming.
Baby apologize after that beautiful voice and after that beautiful dance. You have to listen to my, coarse voice. And in case I fail to, continue, please accept my apology. And that's why I'm sitting, because, otherwise I may not be able to continue. And it's a shame, not to have this discussion. Iranian revolution was a very unique revolution, I think. It was probably one of its first kind. My prediction is we would have a lot more of this in future. So this is actually a sign of an era. Why was it unique? Because I think it was both a revolution and a counter-revolution. You could say it was a revolutionary counter-revolution, or a counter-revolutionary revolution. Why do I say that? I mean, from two angles you can, look at that. One is what we overthrew is, in fact, to be honest, was more progressive than what replaced it. We overthrew monarchic dictatorship to have a religious fascist dictatorship. 110 years after the Iranian Democratic Revolution, we have achieved a theocracy. So you can see in historical terms, the result is counter-revolutionary. And it is also counter-revolutionary in the sense that the Iranian Revolution was indeed a revolution. At its height, it involved 10 million people in activities, in protests, in strikes, in fighting the army, the police, etc. In the last 4 months of it, you had general strike involving 3 million workers. The middle classes were involved in this revolution. The urban poor was part of this revolution. So it was a mass movement. It wasn't just some conspiracy. There was an eruption of revolutionary crisis because of the economic crisis of 1975-76. That's what brought it about. So in both sense, in the sense that it did not achieve the demands of these masses which participated in this revolution, it was also counter-revolutionary. The demand of the masses for work, for employment, for freedom, were part of that revolutionary movement. So in that sense, the government which came after the insurrection betrayed all those demands. So it was counter-revolutionary in that sense too. But nevertheless, the same people who led this revolution are the same people who took power. And this is a contradiction. This is the peculiarity and the uniqueness of the Iranian Revolution. And I just want to sort of bring to your attention what are the reasons for this. Firstly, you have to understand what happened in the Iranian White Revolution, which is 20, 30 years earlier than this. The Shah carried out what he called the White Revolution. So the Iranian Revolution is actually directly a reaction to that. What was White Revolution? In terms of economic development, what it achieved was a very substantial period of industrial growth. The Iranian economy grew tenfold probably during the 10, 15 years after the White Revolution. Iranian working class increased, say, from 1.5 million to about 4.5 million in this period. So there was a huge growth. So you can say this was fantastic economic development. But this economic development produced, at the end of 15 years, almost 7 million urban poor. And there you can see the contradiction. Capitalist growth has actually pushed us back. It developed a level of industrialization, but it created huge unemployment. agrarian revolution, agrarian reform by the Shah, the land reform by the Shah, resulted in 40% of the peasant population migrating to towns. They were released from land, therefore they had to find jobs. So they went to cities looking for jobs. In the first few years, it was okay. They were absorbed by this growth. But gradually, the growth reached its limit and it could not absorb all these migrants coming to town. So, in fact, because of that, it created many different aspects of backwardness. One was reliance on family labor. You see huge growth in family labor, in basically unpaid labor, because people have to survive. You see huge growth in shanty towns around major cities. In Tehran, you had almost 700,000 people living in shanty towns. So what I want to bring to your attention is this capitalist growth is the actual culprit here. Why did this happen? Because basically this type of capitalist growth, which was initiated by USA, has its limit. Why was it? Because they basically wanted to produce consumer goods for the internal market, basically by joint ventures with imperialist capital, which initially, as I said, led to a huge growth. But this type of capitalist growth is limited by its nature. Why? Because there is no exchange between the actual businesses, basically. You're producing just for consumption by the consumers. There is no exchange, business to business exchange, because we don't produce any means of production. Unless you produce means of production, there is no internal market between the two sectors of your economy. So gradually you reach this limit. You gradually reach a limit in which you can no longer absorb what you force out of the means of production. Because this capitalist growth releases more and more people from their own livelihood, but there is no factory to absorb them. So this is the situation. Secondly, because of all the previous historical interventions by foreign powers, we don't have the resources to cope with such a situation. Let me explain. In 1906, we had a democratic revolution called the Iranian Constitutional Revolution. This was defeated by Russian and British imperialism. They brought back Asiatic despotism. Then, during the Russian Revolution, there were new upheavals in Iran. British carried out a coup with the Cossack army that was left over by the Russian imperialists to put Reza Shah on the throne. He first became the Minister of Defense, then later on he became the Shah, the new Shah, the father of the last Shah that we overthrew. During the Second World War, as some of you know, we were occupied by the Allies, and after that they overthrew the Shah and put his son on the throne. There was again a huge political upheaval in Iran, which led to the movement for nationalization of the oil and rise of Mossadegh to power. Mossadegh was sort of an elected, semi-democratic type of government, which was then overthrown by a coup by the Shah, by US imperialism, to bring back the Shah. So you see all these progressive forces that we have Iranian society has thrown up in the last 100 years of its history have been one by one defeated by intervention, not by internal reaction. Internal reaction did not have the power to defeat this because there was these movements, but by help from outside, by intervention from US imperialism, basically over the last period. So what happened is, this is basically the problem here now. We have this upheaval. It starts in 1975 with the economic crisis. 1976, you see beginning of the mass movement, strikes, but all very isolated. 1977, you have huge clashes between Arab and poor, and the military forces. And then you have the 2 years of the revolutionary crisis. Again, we have, to thank US imperialism for the mess which follows. What US imperialism and its, mouthpieces are trying to tell you is, look, there was a revolution, we didn't want it, we didn't expect it, and we tried other better alternatives, but we couldn't find anybody to lead this. So, at the last resort, we said, okay, let's deal with Khomeini. But this is an absolute lie. Because this alternative was created by US imperialism itself. It is not that we had no alternative, therefore we turned to the mullahs. But the mullahs were created by US imperialism as an alternative. And the deals go back at least 2 years before the revolution. Now they are trying to say, the last 3 months, yes, there was some negotiation between USA and Khomeini's leadership. But this happened 2 years before that. The 3 persons who represented Khomeini in the sort of Western political world were all CIA agents. We all know now, they were all CIA agents. I mean, I was at the time abroad in England, studying in England. I was a member of Confederation of Iranian Students. So we were aware of all these opposition groups. We knew all these groups. Yeah? And the religious opposition, which later on became so powerful, to be honest, was nobody. They couldn't hold a meeting with 20 people, I mean, we ignored them basically. They were so insignificant. Suddenly, 2 years before the revolution, they would have meetings, 500 people in the room. They had huge money all of a sudden. Huge amount of money poured into religious groups abroad. They had newspaper, conferences, movies, This was being pushed. This was being helped. Now, I cannot prove any of this, of course, but by evidence that you can see all around you, there was obviously some force pushing the religious leadership to the forefront of this mass movement. If you remember, they brought Khomeini from Iraq, put him in Paris, center of world attention, to present him as the leader of the Iranian revolution. So what I'm trying to say is US imperialism actually saw the revolution 2-3 years before, saw the signs of the revolution. Don't believe, we were, surprised, as much surprised as you were. No, they knew. I mean, we knew revolution is beginning, so how could they not know? They were all spying on us, so at least they could have heard from us that a revolution is coming. And they perfectly well knew this. So they started, and they were worried about this. Because this mass movement, Iranian revolution, could play a very significant role in the whole region, as the oil nationalization played a very significant role in the whole region. So in order to stop that happening, and in order to stop the revolutionary mass movement achieving anything, they pushed these so-called anti-imperialists so that nobody would get, surprised that why are these people leaders of this revolution? They were anti-imperialists also. Verbally, they would say the worst things against US imperialism too. But behind the scene, US imperialism had reached agreement with them, and because of this pushed them to the forefront of the Iranian mass movement. Why? It's ever so simple. To safeguard the bourgeois state, to keep the bourgeois state intact after the revolution. When the revolution took the day of the insurrection, I was in Tehran. Next day, after the insurrection, it was announcement, 14 military committees in Tehran took power. They were led by an Ayatollah Khamenei. Those of you who are Iranians would know his name. This guy was released from jail, Savak jail, a year and a half earlier. Are you telling me Saleth didn't know he's building these 14 military committees during the period just before the revolution? How did this happen? I mean, next day after the insurrection, as if nothing has happened. The city was quiet, as if nothing has happened. There was a huge insurrection, but immediately they took power with these 14 military committees. And when you see how this state starts the day after attacking all the mass movement, you realize what was planned. They started attacking the workers, national minorities, women. Every social group that opposed it was suppressed in the next period. So basically what I'm trying to tell you is, first of all, capitalist growth under imperialism produces worse condition than improvement. Even industrial growth, this type of capitalist growth produces such unemployment, huge unemployment, and huge groups of urban poor. This provided sort of the shock troops for the counter-revolution to actually defeat the rest of the masses. They used this to suppress the rest of the mass movement. This is basically what happened. And when you see the murderous activities of this regime after the first year or so, you realize what its role was. And this is, I think, what our talk today is about. I hope I have covered the main point I wanted to say. If you allow me, I think I stop here. Yeah?
Thank you.
Yeah.
I'm a former political prisoner. I spent 4.5 years in Evin and Qazalesar. I try to be as short as possible because I know many other factors going to be other aspects of prison, torture will be covered by my other fellow panelists. So I'll try to just focus on women and political prisoner and Evin, basically in Qazalesar, which I was held during the 1980s. 1980s, I'm sorry. To just that, the aspects of there was exclusive to women. We went through what we went through. Basically, the rest of it we shared the same process, the same interrogation methods, and the same tortures and same experience. Being a woman in some place like Iran, Islam-stricken countries, is already very difficult. But because based on Sharia law, if you're not obeying or violating any of those areas of Sharia law, what is being interpreted by Islamic Republic, you are waging a war against God, and especially against Islamic Republic. And being a female political prisoner, so obviously that is much worse. So I'm trying to focus in that area. Under Islamic Republic, the rule is you're woman, you're female, your basic duty of the woman is to go home and raise devoted Muslim and be trying to meet whatever needs your husband or the male of your family needed. Normally it would cause lots of retaliation from Islamic Republic toward women. I was arrested right way before of the mass incarceration happened. That was in, if I'm not wrong, June 20th of June 1980 was political coup, to be honest. It was political coup because it was in a very short time, so many political dissidents were arrested. And I was, about a couple of weeks before I got arrested, I was in Evin. So the situation, the atmosphere was so different. We didn't know what happened. I'm trying to reflect what I personally, excuse me, I experienced and what I saw. In the beginning of
in the early 1980s, Islamic Republic attacked, it was well-organized attack by Hezbollahi pro-Khomeini militia, started on the meeting places, newsstands, book stands. Everybody in my generation probably remember those days. That was the beginning. And I remember, I really am dying to say this because everybody knows about ISIS everywhere. We experienced firsthand, not like, it's not metaphorically, it's actually literally. I remember the people who were in Tehran, they remember, we were having a newsstand or book stand everywhere. In the central of Tehran, there was a group, organized talks. They were funded, they were trained, they were ordered by revolution committees in Tehran. And I remember they were all black. They were wearing black. They were called themselves Siyah Jamagan in Persian, black clads. So when I see ISIS, automatically I remember what happened. They were the same thing. They were carrying machetes, big knives, chain, everything you could possibly to think about. They would come out of nowhere and they start cleaning the street all the way everywhere political dissident were trying to have campaign or anything. Were beaten so badly during that time in the street. Gradually started to be the amount of attacks in terms of frequency, frequent and also extensive. It started in those days, not in June 20th. So I got arrested right before that. This is just a very short glimpse to what you expect as a woman when you go in. We did not have hijab in that time. It was not mandatory for everybody in that time, just for employees of public sector. So obviously we didn't have anything. It was just normal, just like the way I look, almost. Upon your arrival in Evin, the very first thing they did, we were 4 of us. They greeted us. We were handed to a few guards. We were beaten up right there to just let us know what is the taste of being in present. We were told actually, welcome to hell. So you start your journey right there to all the process of, we didn't have blindfold at that time. You go to, excuse me, through the normal administration process, fingerprinting, mugshots, and initial interrogation. In that time, the interrogation did not involve with any kind of torturing to reveal or extract any information. That wasn't their tactic in that time. So we were transferred to a single cell with three of us in one small cell. I'm just going to go through, because I have to finish on time, what happened in a few weeks after that. This is what I experienced. I have to go through it in a point form. First of all, I have to mention this as well too. Islamic Republic started right in 1979, but especially in the 1980s. They started well-organized, trying to change the prison system by centralizing them and expanding them. So in that time when I got arrested, Evin, one of the very infamous prison in Tehran, was really overcrowded already. You just can imagine after a couple of weeks what would happen, because many massive incarceration happened right after on June 20th when Mujahideen publicly announced that they started their armed phase, and obviously a regime started to try their tactics, and so in a very short time they start executing everybody in those few minutes of court time. It was like a drumhead, that kind of drumhead court martial. In fact, they had, because you didn't have access to anything, and a lawyer or anything, or having a warrant for search or any kind of that, of course, was fairy tale. And as far as I personally experienced and witnessed during the imprisonment, Islamic law have no any definition or recognition for legal rights for political prisoners whatsoever. So we didn't even ask for it or demand for it, or being very resented why we don't have any access of those. We didn't know what we're supposed to do. So this is what I experienced. Shortage of medicine and medical attention, and also lack of access to treatment were a norm both in Evin and Ghazal-e-Sar, another very notorious prison. Access to other like normal and basic convenience and facilities were actually not many times. They were taken away, using it as a means of torturing you or pressurizing you, like hot water for taking bath. It came time we didn't have access to hot water, we didn't bathe, and considering that we were so many of us, we were under the torture many times, constantly. Personally, I had to, babysit my injury in my face for so long, and just try to peel the dried blood. It was coming from my chin, from my ear, and it wasn't only me. It was just common. It was a trend, and not having it was just aggravating the condition we were living. So all those, not having access to visitation, not having access to fresh air, and many all of those basic needs were actually denied to use it as a means of torture. That was just, we didn't even see it as a torture, because the real torture, thank you, the real torture was the beating, whatever tools they had, chain, and the common one was lashing the sole of your feet. And again, due to overcrowding, disease would spread very quickly, especially when there was no, or not at all, or limited access to sanitary materials or tools. There is no sanitary napkins or pads for women. That was horrible time. I didn't want to really talk about that. It was horrible, but I was just saying in a form, short form. And also, because of this, so many skin diseases and respiratory illness were present, and also lice, infection of urinary tract. I suffered a lot, still I'm suffering. It was very common with everyone. And seeing physician, access to dentists and medical care would take months. And of course, if you needed the appropriate treatment to go to hospital or being seen by a professional, that was also just fictional, because you were there. I personally witnessed so many of the prisoners. They had epilepsy, they had chronic migraine. We didn't know what to do. They were just there, and they would go through so many seizures in a day. It depends on what type of punishment we were under, and that was really heartbreaking. Interrogation was carried out right after, as I mentioned, when the detainee would come in Evin usually, and later on it started with beating you first and then questioning you after, and depend on your responses, they would decide if you need more torture or no. And those interrogations would take weeks and months, and that all of it means when you go, you call, you're going to go straight on the table, in the torture chamber, you're tied up, and start lashing you. And I have to say, Sharia law says it's, touching, any contact from male and with female is definitely forbidden. But however, in torture chamber, those laws by themselves was broken so many times. One interrogator would sit on you as a woman mostly in the middle part, on your leg and your chest, and so anywhere. And the other one would start beating you. So that was interrogation. After the interrogation, if you happen to escape the valley of death, you get some sentence, term of sentence, and you send out to Ghazalistan. Ghazalistan is, in that time, in 1980s, was most heavily populated of present in Iraq. And I was among the very, very first group of women we arrived there. And I'm going to say this, the very first thing they did, the same thing, welcome to hell, and start beating us up. And we were bombarded with a verbal abuse. What happened, even well, still they don't believe that they have political prisoners. They don't have political prisoners. And in 1980s, they had people regard, like, I mean, how much, how far, and how, close you were to Islam and Sharia law, and they view you were called and named infidel or hypocrite or hypocrisy, infidelity, or apostasy. That's the only thing they were called you. There was nothing. For women, they did not even recognize that status. You were corrupted. You were there looking for husband, and many, many times they would try to convince you, even you had a political view, a political stance, you had a certain principle, you were involved with political activities. You're not there, you were there to looking for a husband, even you were 17, 18, 19 years old, still a student. But they were trying to have this propaganda, to sell it out to the people, and also to you as a person. If you didn't see it, it wasn't invisible, but there was attempt by the organizations, mostly left movement, political movement, you were there to be a sexual object, to be used for sexual favor to your counterpart male in those organizations you were affiliated with. And that, well, of course, the importance of this well-organized creation of a new culture, it might not affect me, somebody like me. We were there, we didn't want to, we resisted, but it was important. When you, because of all those, the horrible, horrendous execution, especially in 1981 and 1982 through to 1988, you had to stand back, you have to do a little bit of, like, I mean, a step down and try to save your skin. They wanted you as a woman. If you are giving in, you falling into that repentance culture, you have to, part of your confession, if you want to do confession, have to consist of this, that I was actually a sexual object by the hand of the certain organization you were associated with it. That was the mainly, and that was kept actually until the end. Every single one of them. For those people, they gave in. They start working with them. They start this new culture being ears and eyes of interrogator inside the ward and spying on us. Many of them, unfortunately, they couldn't even save their own skin. But all those they did for government, for the Islamic Republic, many of them, they got executed. Anyways. But a part of their confession has to consist of this. They knew that they're lying, but they were trying to just prove that how much they mean it, to justify all those crimes happened and took place by Islamic Republic. And they wanted to get out of this. So they feed this this fabrication by Islamic Republic. We were women, they seduced us and did and that, and they were just going by the lie. Actually, they sound very good. And on the other hand, another thing, it was trying to silence their families. The families, didn't have any means to go ask for their daughters what happened, to do something about it. That wasn't they're supposed to do, what they're supposed to do. They're supposed to be ashamed, and because their daughters dishonored them, being involved with that kind of corrupted culture and political activity for women, it was corrupted. It was not something honorable. So they couldn't say nothing. And if I have time, I want to say something about the women. We were all young, and of course, many of the women, political prisoner, female political prisoner, who were pregnant or got arrested, they had their little ones with them, and that was very, very horrible. And I wasn't one of those, but I feel really, my heart goes out to them, because in many cases, these women, they had to calm down and swallow their pride. They swallow their principle, political principle, for just the sake of their child. Because it would happen times, they come and they would say, are you willing to denounce the organization you were affiliated with and announce and declare your loyalty toward Islamic Republic, and especially particularly Khomeini? And of course, many of us said no, and we did our punishment. We get beaten up so savagely, and we were sent out to a solitary confinement or singular cell, and with the limited access of many things. Those women has to go through that just for sake of their children, to maintain that condition. Even was horrible, but they have to. During the interrogation, in many cases, I think motherhood was one of the most painful experience for those women as well, beside of everything else. And of course, those little they were children, they were there, no toys, no enough, lack of formula, lack of diapers, and many things they went through. They actually grew up, some of them did. And so quickly, I have to go to the last subject. I will talk about this rape. I'm so sorry, I have to just rush through it. Rape. Rape was the very last step that was committed by Islamic Republic for young children. Based on this is like, I mean, you have to explain this based on the context of religious ideology. If you're a woman, when you get executed, you go straight to heaven if you're virgin. If not, they want to make sure that you go straight to hell. So what they did, all those young girls, average age of 17 maybe, and many of them, they were students, high school students, and they got right before go to execution, they were raped by the interrogators or fire squad, whoever. And right away, the execution would take place. We didn't know about it. Nobody talked about it because sexuality was such a taboo, even among us as a Marxist. Until we're partially it's been documented, I'm so glad, by Justice for Iran, by the families of those the executed one. They were told by the officials that, congratulations, your daughter, married one of blah blah or whatever, like a sira, something. And well, you can imagine, just imagine how hard it is to be violate your dignity as a human being. It has nothing to do with political view. It has nothing with your political principle. You as a woman, how you feel about it. You violated physically, emotionally, psychologically, and all those, and still you're going to, mostly you've been tortured right before the execution field, you're taken there, and then rape you. They wanted you to feel nothing, even before you go, you die. And that happened. Many of them, it's not been documented, the amount and extent of this appalling atrocity they committed against us. At the end, I have few minutes. Do I have few minutes?
Yes.
Yeah. There is a saying, I don't know who said it, but there is a good saying. It says, well-behaved people never change their situation. And that was the whole focus on their culture. They wanted you to well-behave, to not be able to change anything. Those people, they've been in Brazil, they remember the most ruthless head of official of Islamic Republic, head of Brazil name was Haj Dawood. And in my opinion, he was one of one of the most savage, ruthless, brutal person I have ever met. And the other one is Lajvadi, the general prosecutor, and we called him Butcher of Evin. You just imagine why we called him. And this guy, this official, and many times they told us, I make sure, even you're not one of the repentant, you're gonna be, nothing left of you. You have nothing when you go out to lift your chin up. All the bridges behind you are broken. And you actually, and some of us, they did. We did, and we didn't until we start collaborating with them. But you just emotionally and psychologically so broken, you don't know what's wrong with you anymore. Because it has nothing with your political belief. It has everything with you as a human being and human dignity. They were taken away, they were violated, they were assaulted, you were insulted in any possible way you think about. I don't have time to elaborate about this. I'm sure my other fellow panelists, maybe they can talk about it in details. But many examples happen. You would actually desire death, to die the suffering and gradually dying. You see yourself dying, a piece of you every day. And that was, they wanted to have a new generation. If they couldn't kill you, you a well-behaved person, because nothing would change. That's what they wanted to have. To achieve political stability and stay that way. No opposition, no dissident, no anything. Everything in that framework of Sharia law, framework of Islamism, so stay there. They don't have to deal with. They use every invention, every intelligence they wanted to. And this person, that Haj Dawood, one of those smartest person in Islamic Republic, and that smartness was used to innovate many ways of torturing you, to break inside. I was lashed many times on my head, and it was not only me. All the people from my ward were taken there right before we go to the coffin. They say coffin. It was doomsday coffin, baskets, casket, or I'm sorry, I'm mixing up version of it. And we called it boards, and that was one of the horrible places I ever said. I probably was really funny. I'm smiling about it, because psychologically this is what one of our defensive mechanisms. We could not do anything. We tried to laugh it out. He said, that was, he was actually lashing everybody's with a cable on the head. Why? They wanted to change it and move it physically. They said, the head of you, blah, 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 it has to be moved, and get the light of God to start to enlighten your brain, and you will see Islamic Republic is the last way of prosperity for humankind. That was they wanted to, and they were, all the lashes were on head. It was that's what they wanted you to devote to Islam. It's not just leave alone your political stance and everything. Just be. No, you had to return to one of those well-wearing Islamism. They actually proudly advertising this is the best position of a woman being and following, be subjugated and being suppressed. This is, but on the other word, we're gonna be warded. that was they want from you. So that was why repentance culture started beginning. They wanted to suck out every bit of humanity out of you. And it is humanity. It's like compassion, empathy, sympathy, everything you can see as a symptom of humanity inside you, and you express it in that way, and based on that expression, you find what you want to do, find a way. You want to be devoted to for animal right, or environmental, or political, or whatever, because of those essential aspects of humanity, and that they wanted to make sure there is no even single cell to reproduce. You have to be turned to one of them. I'm sorry, I probably talked about so many things here and there, but I didn't have time to cover all of it. I'm just going to finish with this. The magnitude or intensity of these crimes, those crimes, and violence against the political dissident reached threshold of brutality in 1988, which we didn't cover. Probably maybe it's going to be mentioned. And I want to say that one of those, the witness survivor, we're not going to forget. It's against humanity to forget. A couple months ago, there was a soldier, Nazi soldier, was 95, probably you heard it. He got 5 years. 5 years for 95 years old, it's like a life sentence. There was no evidence he killed somebody during that time, but he was charged with charge against crime against humanity. Why? He didn't kill anybody necessarily, but he was a member of a party who did. He killed millions of people. So in my belief, Islamic Republic, all those from the top to the bottom of them, everybody made sure that massacre happened during those still now, and some of them we know now in the United States, in Canada, and Europe, they become reformists, and we know it. We give them a microphone, we give them put them under the light. You know what? All of them responsible. And we'll make sure we're not going to forget about that. This is a piece of history. We cannot. It's not up to them. It's not up even to me. It's a part of human history. We have to make sure that it's not being forgotten, and they have to pay for the crime they made. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Nooshin. Next speaker is Abi Abani from Seattle, Washington. His title of speech is Two Eyes.